All right, Shalom, Israel. First and foremost, as always, I would like to give all praises, honor, glory, respect, and blessings to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, Rakaha, Quadash. Salutations to the Lord's elect on the four quarters of the earth, pushing His truth and sincerity while patiently waiting for Yahweh Shai's return, and double honors to our apostles and elders of Great Millstone, which have taught us everything we know through the spirit and power of Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai. And this is going to be a video going into how everything slowly transitioned from modern standard living and how it all is being led to this new technical industrial revolution, which will lead to the mark of the beast system, which the chip will be a part of that, okay? How is all going to be led to it, okay? Now, back in the 1800s, okay, you didn't have anything like cell phones. Cell phones did not exist. Cell phones did not exist. Okay, 1800s, beepers did not exist. You know, all of this super high technology you see around you did not exist. Computers did not exist. Before, when people had to do mathematics, when they had to do particular math problems, okay, they had to write things down on paper until calculators were created. So computers, laptops, none of that shit existed. You know? Now, I believe electricity did exist, which they want to say that a Amalekite discovered electricity, which is all really a lie. Because the first man to really discover electricity was a so-called black man. But anyways, when people went to go buy at the supermarkets, when they went to go cash out, right? When they went to go cash out, you know, the cashier, he operated on a cashier where there were particular keys that you had to press on the cashier to open the cash drawer. Particular keys that you had to press to lock the cashier. Particular keys you had to press to unlock the cashier. You see? Houses, even houses Even houses were built different, okay? Remember the older houses which had chimneys? Chimneys were created not only to keep the house warm, but to avoid monoxide poisoning from the flames burning away at the wood inside the house. Well, or so they say. Because some people would add charcoal to the burning wood for whatever dumb reason. But the chimneys were there to let the smoke out as the fire would burn away at the wood. And even when I was a child, my mom used to live in a house that had a chimney, okay? And she used to light a fire. She used to light the firewood in the chimney to keep the house warm. Okay? Old-fashioned houses used to burn on used to run on gas stoves, okay? Gas stoves, water heaters. You see? Gas stoves, water heaters. All of these old-fashioned things, you know. Bikes, scooters. It all required human effort if you wanted to get somewhere, if you wanted to get far. How far and how fast you got to your area on the bike or on the scooter depended on how much energy you would put into it. How you doing?
Good, how are you?
Well, I'm fine. Thanks for asking. You know, it all depends upon how much energy you was willing to put into it. You know, before there were even street lights, did you know that they used to have people who would stand in the middle of the road, and the man who was standing in the middle of the road, of course, he was known as the road guider. He would have two signs in his hand. One sign would be red. The other sign would be yellow. And obviously, when you saw yellow, okay, the people on the road would know to slow down. If the people saw the red sign, they would know to stop, so that the people on the other side of the road could go. This was way before street lights was created to guide the traffic. So now, when you fast forward in time, we started seeing, what do they call them? Telepathic phones. Phones that where you could relay a message to somebody, depending on how narrow the tube was, and how frequent air could travel for your message to get by. Before phones, though, there used to be messengers. You know, the man would be given a message, and he was paid to deliver the message from point A to point B. And then mailmen were created. If people wanted news on the latest things on that was happening around the world, right? You had your newspaper man. Okay? You had your newspaper man. Or they would call him the newspaper boy. And basically, he was responsible for riding your bikes throughout your neighborhood and throwing newspapers in your yard, where as soon as you picked up the newspaper, you would literally get the latest scoop on what's happening in your local area. Okay? And then we get into the 1950s. We start seeing old-fashioned cars becoming more advanced. You know, you got your Cadillacs, your Buicks, your good old-fashioned 1950 cars, right? Your Nissans. You see? But before cars, there were what? Horses and carriages. You know? And I believe that's when they started creating a system, a telephone type system where basically they had a system set up to where like wires were connected up to homes, buildings, so that when a particular line was dialed, the phone was programmed to ring. The phone was programmed to ring. Okay? So you had your old-fashioned telephone system where if your particular number was dialed, your phone would ring, you would answer it, and you would actually be able to hear the voice of the one that's speaking to you from a far distance. You know, this was some of the first long-distance telephone call lines. You know? And again, computers did exist around this time, but they were large, they were very slow. They weren't as calculated. It was like one of those old-fashioned computers. They had like a really large box monitor. It was very slow, but it was able to understand numbers, letters, alphabets, able to put things into a sentence, able to save information. Things of that nature, right? So now you start to see how technology becomes more and more advanced. According to Habakkuk, the 2nd chapter, what did the Lord Yahweh Hamashiach, what did he say through the prophet Habakkuk? He said, many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall be increased. So we get into the late 1900s, right? People going to stores. People still buying with cash and coins, but people got more advanced cash registers, you know? These registers are more easier to understand, you know? They're more calculated, more organized, you know? You see? But people were still trading in cash. Cards, credit cards, electronic payments, online payments, none of that shit existed. Okay? People were still dealing with cash. Okay? When people got paid, you got a check. Just like today, your check had to be cashed at a bank. Okay? You had to strictly go to a bank to cash your check. So you can start to see how technology is leading to conveniency, and how this conveniency is leading people to being lazy, laying back, letting their guard down. You know, getting comfortable with not doing nothing. You see? And this is the late 1900s, right? When I say the late 1900s, I'm talking about like maybe 1988. 1997, 1988-ish, you know, somewhere around those time frames. Okay, when people were still only dealing in paper checks, you know, when people got paid, they got paper checks. You know, people did not get paid electronically. Tawada Yahweh Shai, for allowing me to cross the street safely. Okay. And again, this was around the time when beepers came out, right? Everybody wanted a beeper. And this was, I believe, beepers were the start of wireless communications. Okay? So you can see the slow mental conditioning of the people here, right? People got tired of having to be stuck at home waiting to get a phone call, right? Not necessarily from a job, but maybe from a friend, right? A friend, a family member. Okay? Imagine you got to sit at home for almost 3 hours just to get a phone call, right? Okay, cool. Beepers. Somebody could just page me and I'll know to show up. Because he said, or she said specifically, when you feel or hear your beeper going off, come and see me. Let's hang out. Da 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 da. Okay? And around this time, this is where box computers started to be released to the public. Small little box monitor. Okay, cool, You got your little small box, your little small computer box where you got the engine, the disk, everything is running. Man, it's gonna be a long, cold ass walk home.
Wait.
You got a small a computer monitor box. You got the little when I say the monitor box, I'm talking about the screen as to what is used for people to actually see what's going on the computer. This is how people were able to browse the web, right? Around this time, the internet was readily available for people to use, okay? You could openly and readily availably access the web if you were like in schools, because some schools had libraries or recreational rooms, or however you want to put it. They had like these special little rooms that was full of computers and monitors where you could play games. If you wanted to do something on it, like type up an essay, make a report or something, and save it to a floppy disk. I bet everybody forgot about floppy disks, right? Because now we have USB drives and we have all this other stuff. But back then, people used to save their information on floppy disks. And that was like the main source of saving your information. Okay? You would save it on a floppy disk because USB drives did not exist back then. The Wada Yahweh Shai for allowing me to cross the street safely again. And floppy disks was not able to hold up to much information. And as a matter of fact, I believe a floppy disk could only hold up to megabytes. I think up to 100 or maybe 200 megabytes worth of information, which was still a lot back then, because like if you was using WordPad or Microsoft Word, right, that would only take up like kilobytes worth of data and information. Okay, so like 100 megabytes back then was considered a lot of data that could be stored, because it takes 1,000 kilobytes to get 1 megabyte, and it takes 1,000 megabytes to get 1 gigabyte, and it takes 1,000 gigabytes to get 1 terabyte. So all right, Salak, give me a moment here. Snow blizzard out here, but okay, I had the information up on my screen earlier, but I lost track of that info, unfortunately. So as I was saying, you know, you can see how advanced technology is becoming, but you can also see the mental manipulation as to what's going on concerning the people, right? You can see how people are slowly being led into a technocracy. And you can see how technology is becoming more and more involved with people's lives. Okay? You know, the small little computer boxes that you could get on, floppy disks, you know. Wait. You know, and again, this is around, you know, the 1997, 1998, you know. Oh yeah, TVs, you know. I believe TVs TVs came out around the 1950s, I believe. Okay, even though everything was like in everything was in black and white. Okay, everything was in black and white. You know, but black and white TVs, you know. So yeah, of course, you know, in 1997, 1998, right? Of course, there will be computers with monitors on them, you know, box monitors, you know, because you had the old-fashioned box TVs, you know, of different sizes, of course. You had your old-fashioned 40-inch screen box TV. I still remember those when I was a child, you know. Well, my mom had one with color in it. So I guess when 1997, 1998 came around, box TVs were released with actual color in the screens. And we can't forget about VHSs, right? You know, VHS tapes, remember VCRs? This was long before DVDs, right? Remember where movies were played through videotapes? VHS? Remember that? So, you can see how technology is starting to take over people's lives, you know? Not only do you have box TVs with color on them, you have computers with color in them. Well, computers with color in them. Okay? So then, you know, we get into like what? The year 2000, the year 2002, year 2003. Well, let's start with the year 2001. In the year 2001, we started seeing people with flip phones. Well, first there was the hand phones. You had the hand phones. You know, I remember I used to have one. It was a Nokia. You know, it was a small phone. Had like buttons on it, of course. Had like a small screen. But it was a handheld Nokia cell phone. Okay? And this was a cell phone that would allow you to make phone calls as long as you had minutes added to it. But in order to add minutes to the phone, you had to buy a minute card. Okay? Actually, I'm gonna get rid of this screen here because I'm just gonna put my hands in my pocket real quick. Okay? You know? And then after that came what? You had the flip phones that came out. And I believe, I don't know what year it was, but then you had like DVDs coming out where movies could be played through DVDs. When, you know, when DVDs came out, that was like the new popular thing. Everybody wanted to get a DVD player. You know, everybody wanted to get a DVD player. And technology just became more and more advanced. Oh, and what do you know? Credit cards started to be released around this time, right? Yeah, credit cards started to be released around this time. And as a matter of fact, I believe my mom used to have a credit card. In the year 2003, year 2004, my mom used to have a credit card. Okay? Having a credit card was like the new thing. That was like the new way to go. Because payments were quicker.
80th Street. Walk sign is under control.
Okay? Payments were more quicker. They were more advanced. And you could get your payments out of the way just like that. Okay? The Wada Yahweh shot for allowing me to cross the street safely again. Okay? So everybody wanted to get a credit card, you know? You made a payment. Well, you bought something. The only catch was that you just had to pay it back later. Okay? You just have to pay it back later. Credit cards. You see how convenient that is? You don't need cash, right? And not only that, but with a credit card, you can make online payments. I believe being able to buy things online started with that too. You know? So you can see how as time progressed, right, people started becoming more and more comfortable with a technocracy society or with a technocrat society. You know? Now, you know, you had the iPhone that came out. That was really popular. A computer the size of a phone in your hands, able to browse the web with it. Every chick wanted a guy that had an iPhone because it meant that he was making good money, right? So, you know, at around that time, getting paid online or getting paid electronically became possible. Okay? It became possible through what? An electronic card. But right? But then we fast forward to 2014 to 2015, right? Which was when people in Sweden were chipped. And why were they chipped? They were chipped to replace their wallet, their keys, or even passes to get on the train. It was all done for conveniency. Oh, whoa, 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 whoa. What is my phone doing? Chill out. But okay. You can now see, okay, well, not now see, but you can start to see and understand how it's becoming very, very clear as to how the people in this society are being manipulated into a technocrat society. And it was all set up by design, okay? It was all set up by design to get people prepared for a new world order technocrat society where everybody will have to live in a 15-minute city and be chipped. And these are the times that we are coming into, brothers. Which is why we need to fast, pray, and hope for the mercy of Yahweh Bashem, Yahweh Shai. I pray that this video has been edifying. With that, I'm going to say shalom. It's on to the next one.